99.5 FM, Kaieteur Radio.
COVID-19 tips sponsored by Deck Soap. 1. Practice social distancing. 2. Wear your mask when leaving the house. 3. Wash your hands regularly for 20 seconds using our Deck Soap. 4. Cover your nose and mouth with a disposable tissue or flex elbow when you cough or sneeze. Choose Deck Soap for that extra cleanliness. Deck Soap is affordable and available nationwide.
It is now 19 hours 30 all across this beautiful country of ours that we called Guyana, the land of many. And it is time to enter room 592 Guyana, where we unleash the truth. This evening at the helm of the program as usual, Dr. Mahadeo alongside his co-host, Mr. Leonard Gildarie, senior journalist of Kaieteur News. And their guests this evening, not a strange face to room 592 at all, former Attorney General Anil Nandlall. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. Good evening to you, Mr. Kevin Smith. Good evening to the entire Kaieteur Radio crew and to my co-host, Mr. Leonard Gildarie. Ladies and gentlemen all across Guyana, good evening and welcome to room 592, where we unleash the truth. And ladies and gentlemen, it is a day in which we can say some reckoning has taken place. I want to remind everybody, today started in a way that was very, very strange. Today started with a storm, the likes of which many of us might have not seen or experienced before. A lot of places in this country only got the restoration of power in this evening, towards this afternoon. And so today was indeed starting out a very strange day, and I hope the storm, in many ways, has gone well past us. Today, the day in which the CCJ gave us their decisions. And ladies and gentlemen, indeed, I would want to say that without asking for his comment in this, because I know he's not a gentleman to beat his chest, as his opponent lawyer would have accused him of wanting to do. But Mr. Nandlall and his team certainly would be vindicated today. Ladies and gentlemen, before we get to our guests, I want to remind you, this trip to the CCJ was not merely about these elections. It was a matter of point in law. It was a matter of perspective of holding law at its highest degree. And I must say today, law, legal process, legal knowledge has come out on top. And we're all proud of that. There's no winner or loser in today's decision. Guyana has won. Unfortunately, we had to go to the CCJ to win, but Guyana has won. Just to recap it very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, CCJ found that they did have jurisdiction. They took that jurisdiction and decided that the decisions of the Court of Appeal would be set aside because it was, in their own words, as we will hear from Mr. Nandlall, it was what it was. Critically, the Lowenfield's report that was designed and created and ready to be presented while the Court of Appeal had issued a stay, that report is now gone. It's null. It doesn't have any value. We're going to discuss the legal ramifications of today's decision, ladies and gentlemen. And as I welcome our guests to this evening's room 592, I want to remind all of you. Here in Guyana, we have a funny and not funny meaning humorous at all. Maybe it's not funny. A serious matter where a government, having lost power since March 2nd, 2020, has spent a lot of money to denigrate, attack, belittle, embarrass the CCJ. It's like as if they would have been better, they would have been happier if we had to go to the Privy Council instead of a local court, a Caribbean court, a Guyanese court, as it were. Here are people who are crying about sovereignty, but do not know the full meaning of sovereignty, as we discussed nights ago. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm sure that Mr. Nandlall feels some degree of satisfaction that law and due process has won. And Mr. Nandlall, sir, welcome to room 592. And I am going to open the floor, hand over the microphone to you right away, sir, for your comments on today's proceedings.
Thank you very much, Yog. And I speak to you from two perspectives. The perspective of a lawyer winning a case and the perspective of a Guyanese citizen sadly reflecting on where our country is at and is poised to go. What is there to celebrate, Yog? There is nothing that the court decided that the rational mind did not know or do not know or does not know. We know that valid votes in the Constitution means valid votes. And we know all the answers that the CCJ so well articulated in their very esteemed and erudite judgment. So, but it shows how 30 or 40 people have held this country at ransom, have poisoned the minds of their supporters with so much ignorance, misinformation, ill information, malice, that they make those people almost insane. I have listened to educated people speak about this issue, about the Guyana elections from March 2nd, what is a valid vote, what is an invalid vote, how you must count vote, how you must ventilate grievances. And you would think that Guyana is a country that fell from some other part of the universe, and we are meeting civilization for the first time, that we are conducting or engaging in an election for the very first time. We are an independent country with 60 odd years of experience. We have had a multiplicity of elections over the past 6 decades, more elections than more countries in the Caribbean. And this 30 or 40 rigging cabal has brought this country to its knees. Educated people are cussing each other over basic words, what they mean, what are their effect, what does Lowenfield have to do? Can Lowenfield, a chief elections officer, throw away the results of an election and prepare as part of his statutory report fictitious figures? How can that be right? On what level of logic and common sense that can be right? If any CEO has that power, we might as well don't have elections anymore, and each of the political parties try to bribe the CEO, because whatever the CEO, whatever numbers the CEO uses,
right,
that will determine the next government, and you can't go to court because you're hearing the argument that whatever the CEO says is final. And if this was coming from semi-mad people, I would have understood it. But this is coming from lawyers. This is coming from ministers of a government. This is coming from university graduates. people with CXE, GCE, people who are the recipient of secondary and tertiary education to third level. You understand how pathetic we are as a people?
Correct.
And when you look at it from that perspective, there's nothing to celebrate. We have 2 judges in the Guyana Court of Appeal. Look at what they have done. And they are to determine the fate of citizens of this country when they appear before them. And it's not the first time they've done it. Look at what they did with the no confidence motion. They said 33 is not a majority of 65. What do you do with institutions that allow itself to make such perverse decisions? And those are the decisions, those are the judges, those are the institutions that will determine whether you and I are free men tomorrow, whether we own property or not. You see how dangerous this 30 or 40 people have plummeted our country? So there is no victory. I would happily celebrate as a lawyer, but I'm a Guyanese more than I am a lawyer. And for me, the CCJ has decided nothing.
Correct. I cannot disagree with you, Counsel. But the more seriously and worrying is that this afternoon, immediately after the CCJ's decision, Counsel, and I'm sorry to throw this at you at the top of the program, but it is something that we need to address and address now. As immediately after that decision, Mr. Robertson, Mayo Robertson, was on the APNU airway, and he was talking. Well, the CCJ did not tell Lowenfield what type of votes to use. Something, as you rightly say, something has to be wrong in this country. As of this afternoon, also, Mr. Harmon has posted on his social media account saying that nothing can stop Lowenfield from proceeding along the same path that he did before. And of course, you may have been aware, Counsel, as to what Granger also said this afternoon. Over to you, sir.
Yog, I am telling you that there will come a time when these people who are making these deliberately misleading statements, inflammatory statements, incendiary statements, statements that are designed only to excite hostility among the people of this country, those people will have to pay at some point in time. We cannot allow them to abuse the privilege that they have. Leadership, to be catapulted into a position of leadership, is a divine position. It's a privilege, it's not a right. And when you are so privileged to exercise influence over the minds of people who believe in you for whatever reason, and then you abuse that trust and you abuse that power that they have reposed in you, and you manipulate them and use them and abuse them to the pursuit of your narrow selfish agenda, that to me as a leader is the worst crime that you can commit. And there must be some form of retribution which will have to be handed down to these people. I spoke to Mayo Robinson myself this afternoon when I heard what he said. And it was reported to me what he said. Let me be fair to him. And I asked him if he said so. And he told me no. Because I said to him that if you did say so, and I will verify it at the appropriate time, I am going to cut the clip of what you said, and I'm going to forward it to the registrar of the court for appropriate actions to be taken. And I will do that to every attorney at law who misrepresents, manipulates, and vulgarizes the court's decision. You would appreciate that the court spoke in clear language, and the judgment which I have just gone through is written in explicitly, crystally clear language. It is incapable of any form of ambiguity. I heard the president speak this afternoon as well. And I heard the president refuse. I'm not going to deal with what he said, is what he should have said. A responsible leader should have told his people that we lost the case at the Court of Appeal. And this is the end of the line. That the curtains will now fall and GCOM must declare the results. That we tried. But you heard what the court said. It's not that we don't have a grievance, but we must take our grievance to the appropriate forum, which is at the High Court via an elections petition. I didn't hear that come from Mr. Granger's mouth. And in that regard, I didn't hear it come from Harman's mouth either. And in that regard, again, they have failed their country, and most importantly, they have failed their constituency. They have failed the people who are looking forward to them for leadership. They have not failed me. They have not disappointed me. I know the political demagogues who they are, and I don't expect them to behave in any other way for my benefit. But I expect them to be kinder, to be more generous, to be more affectionate, to be more sensitive to the people who have reposed trust and confidence in them. I heard Mr. Granger said today that the matter is with the commission. Well, I can't fault him for saying that, because the matter is indeed with the commission. But in my opinion, he is still ambivalent, he is still ambiguous, because he is not telling them that the court said that Lowenfield can only prepare his report based upon the numbers generated from the election, from the recount exercise.
Correct.
That Lowenfield has no power, no power whatsoever to determine what is valid and invalid votes. That our electoral process is so structured that it weeds out invalid votes. And invalid votes are not counted. That every ballot is ex facie, prima facie, and presumptively valid. And that presumption can only be rebutted in the High Court under Article 163 of the Constitution.
Correct.
Those are the things, not in such language, but those are the things that they should be explaining to their supporters. And let me make this point, you. Leadership, and a leader, a true leader, must have the courage, the substance, and the courage, the substance, and the fortitude to tell their supporters bad news. Then you don't have the mettle of a leader.
Correct.
If you can't tell your people, well, we have lost, and it is time to try again.
Correct.
If you don't have that ability, then you are not qualified to be a leader. We lost the 2015 elections. You think it was easy for us to walk this country and to tell people that we have lost? But we had to do it. Cherry Jagan did it, though Cherry Jagan won every single election from 1968 to 1985. But Jagan walked the length and breadth of this country and explained at every road corner and street corner that they stole the elections, but we have to try, and we have to continue to try. And that is why all the adjectives you see now being used to describe Jagan, they include indomitable.
Correct. Yes. Counsel, I wanna just focus a little bit more on what Granger has said, and the reason being, in the position that he is either purposefully creating absurdities. I'm trying to be very careful with my language here, or he's very ignorant. One of the two, because he said this afternoon the CCJ made no coercive orders. You didn't ask for any coercive orders, by the way. But he also said that means they have not given instructions to what GCOM is empowered under the laws of Guyana to do. And I find that absolutely ridiculous because the court was never asked to tell anybody or to tell GCOM what to do or what not to do. Now, the final thing for your comment, sir, is he then said this matter will go back to GCOM. That's where it was in the first place before Yonette Moore, before they did all the kind of attempts they did to rig these elections. It was with GCOM. And they tried to upset the apple cart at every stage in the way. Now, my question to you, Mr. Nandlall, given Granger's statement here, and given the fact that last week Granger said Lowenfield did well in preparing that report, is he here insinuating an instruction to Lowenfield again?
My friend, no one has to listen to what Anil Nandlall says. Granger has created a track record for himself, starting with his directions to the Public Service Commission to halt employment. When the law says that these commissions are independent and cannot be directed by any politician. I went to court and I get an order against him. He did the same to the Police Service Commission. Then he refused to appoint judges when judges became, when the Judicial Service Commission made recommendations for the appointment of judges. Then he unilaterally appointed Partisan as chairman of GCOM after wrongly rejected 18 names submitted to him by the leader of the opposition. And the man, it looked as though he takes some great glee in doing these things, finding holes in the Constitution, thinking perhaps that it's an exhibition of brilliance, and perhaps, you know, he's demonstrating how bright he is, not recognizing that it's a demonstration of foolery. It's nonsensical, because the courts have upset him time and time again. When the court said out of decency, the court was out of decency and out of respect for them in 2018 after the no confidence motion in that judgment. They said, look, when we asked for the coercive orders, the court said, look, we are dealing with responsible people holding high constitutional offices. It would be improper almost for us to give them directions. Right. So we will refrain from doing that, and we will depend upon their professionalism, and we will depend upon the high position that they hold to discharge their functions under the Constitution. And it is on that basis that the court, out of deference for the office holders, for the office that they hold, did not grant the coercive orders. And look at what they did to the court. They piss upon the court. They trample upon the court's omission. And the court was only doing it out of veneration for them. You understand?
Yes.
And I can cite so many other examples where Granger has violated the Constitution, making a mockery of the language of the Constitution. And here it is again. Just up to now, he has not recognized that Mingo has committed a fraud. And this is a man who campaigned under the banner of decency and honesty, you know. Up to now, never recognized that Lowenfield committed something wrong or did something wrong. In fact, endorsing them. And here it is tonight. Again, an opportunity presenting itself. And he's speaking with a forked tongue, being duplicitous, being ambivalent, leaving it ambiguous, that, you know, as though Lowenfield can again concoct a wrong report when the CCJ very explicitly said that the GCOM must now direct him to correct the error which he has made, having vacated his report, and to present a report with the numbers generated by the recall. Granger is still implying almost in the same way that the court said that the Court of Appeal, but when at some point in time you sit down and read this judgment carefully, the CCJ said that the Court of Appeal impliedly invited Lowenfield to pervert that report. They said so in express language.
Wow.
That it is the Court of Appeal, by inverting, introducing valid as a prefix to the word vote, that they give him the invitation and the license to commit the perversity which he so gladly committed, purportedly acting under their guidance, though their order was on hold. So this whole thing is one nefarious conspiracy. And though the CCJ has uncovered it again, or we have managed to uncover it again with the assistance of the CCJ, you have Granger again saying to the people, well, we have to wait. Nobody can tell Lowenfield what to do. Yes, GCOM. The CCJ just ruled that. The law says that, Section 18 of the Election Laws Amendment Act.
Correct.
They can tell him what to do. They hire him. And if he refuses, they can fire him.
Correct.
So but you see the wickedness that is being perpetuated.
Yes.
It's either out of cowardice, they cannot stand up and look at those people in their face and say, you know what? We have been lying to you all the time. Because the lies that they have been telling is not was told today in State House after the ruling. It is a continuation of the lie. And they don't have the moral courage, and I don't think they have the intellect to undo what they have done.
Correct. But, Counsel, as a purely political operative, we are in a terrible position. Even at this late hour, the CCJ has basically given Granger a way out, right? Granger has refused to take it. What you have happened at this late hour, Norton et al. Are abusing state media to put their perversity out there. And, Counsel, the question I have for you, well, as a political operator, the question I have for you, sir, what next? Because it seems like they are not going to accept any decision that says that APNU-AFC lost.
Well, first of all, I am happy that the people of Guyana, most importantly, and then the Caribbean people, as well as the wider world, are getting an opportunity to see the mentality of these people, their proclivities, their tendencies, and to see that they are political dictators, they are political thugs, and that the only intention is to thief. And I don't want to say steal in this context sounds like a fancy word, a decent word. They want to thief a government. And so we have to allow them to continue this madness that they are engaging in. And we have to wait and see how we have to get the declaration done. And that's the important thing.
Right.
Once we get that declaration of the results done, then a different momentum and a different reaction, a different momentum will develop,
Yes.
and a different reaction will be taken. But for the time being, let them continue to humiliate, embarrass, and showcase their level of ignorance, thuggery, and shamelessness.
Correct.
Right?
Well, Counsel, the
My
other
only-
thing that...
you know what is my fear? You know what's my worry and my deep concern? It's not the 30 or 40 of them, you know. I don't care a damn about the 30 of them. I care about my Guyanese brothers and sisters
Absolutely.
who they are imposing anguish, pain, and suffering upon, because these people, my Guyanese brothers and sisters, chose to listen to them. And those are the people that I am worried about. I am not concerned about Harman and Norton,
Correct.
because I know that they know what they are doing. I know that they know better. I sat in classrooms with Harman. We studied law together. I know that he knows what he's doing. But what I am surprised about is the extent that he will go pretending not to know, so as to mislead, so as to misinform. And why? Simply because he is embroiled in a regime of corruption, a menu of corruption that he fears might land him in jail.
Correct.
So he's fighting for survival of himself.
Yep. Well, Counsel, to that point, Mr. Gildarie and yours truly, today on radio, we shared with viewers and listeners that sometime in September, October last year, Granger said, and I quote David Granger, he said, "My government has accepted that it is now in an interim mode. Government is exercising restraint on its executive authority. Overseas travel by ministers has been restricted to essential. No new policies being implemented, nor are any major agreements being signed." However, Counsel, since then to now, we have seen multi-billion-dollar contracts given away. We have seen the sale of lands. Kaieteur News, I don't necessarily want you to comment on the specifics, but Kaieteur News as of today would have revealed that there were over 44 appointments of various boards made. There were land given out by Missile, the same Missile that was public enemy number one before, has given it to former MPs of APNU-AFC. And of course, there has been the marketing contracts for the crude, the Ocean View Hotel and stuff like that. So, Counsel, you are right. I read that out to share with the viewers that you are on point in terms of there has to be something that they're staying in power for, and it has to be these corrupt contracts. Can we do anything to expose more of these, sir?
Well, we have to expose them, and Kaieteur News and the other media outfits are doing a good job, excellent job, in exposing them. And because of the exposure, you would realize that they will start to go underground. These are criminals. So they will stop advertising these things in the official gazette soon. So you will end up with people turning up with transports and leases for lands that were in relation to transactions that were supposed to be advertised in the official gazette, but never were. So you don't know because Kaieteur and them exposing it. So brace yourself for that segment to step in. And then many people will still remember Brassington and Ashley Singh in handcuffs and shackles to their feet. And you know what they did? They sold lands under a government that had all its plenitude of executive power, sold land under the decision of a cabinet and under the authority of a cabinet decision, lands that were publicly advertised and to the highest bidder, to the highest received bid. Mm-hmm. And that is what they were charged with. My brother, just apply that situation I just outlined to here where you have not a caretaker government anymore, but a government that has lost the elections since March the 2nd. Prior to that, they may have a caretaker status. They don't have a caretaker status after they have lost the elections. They had a holding status, holding until the other government took over. Mm-hmm. But here they are exercising greater power. than a lawful government would have.
Correct.
And I don't understand what I'm also worried about. It's the thinking and mentality and mental makeup of the people who are entering these transactions. I don't know if they wish to see themselves in handcuffs and shackles too. Because you have to be a madman to go and invest your money in a piece of land given or sold to you by a government that is squatting in office and doing fraud and artifice to remain in office, and then using that power illegally to sell you land, and you're going to buy it. Something has to be wrong with you too.
Correct.
Absolutely.
I want to take you back to Mingo's declaration, because one of the things being purportedly being pressed by APNU-AFC is to appeal to GCOM that since the recount has revealed so much invalid votes and valid votes and all the arguments, go back to the declaration and the point of the declaration of the 10 regions and use that. Is there any likelihood that such things would be countenanced by GCOM or in any way?
You know, I remember, you ever cut a chicken head out and you see it flatter like that? Well, these people are behaving like that. Like a chicken who head off and the chicken just jumping wild all over the place. Mingo's declaration and his tabulation have been recognized universally as fraudulent. A court set aside one set of tabulation already as fraud, as in violation of the act. It is as a result of that the Madam Chairman gave an undertaking to the court to do a recount. Then Mr. Granger signed on to CARICOM with Mr. Jagdale to do a recount. And then we crafted that order to do a recount. And then we did the recount. And the recount was certified as free and fair. Even Alexander said that once the recount is certified and the recount is concluded, then Mingo's declaration goes. What? Because they lost the case, now you want to use Mingo recount?
So specifically, the order, this recent order by GCOM, does it close that door for them to possibly use anything previous to that?
Of course. Mingo's report has been overtaken by events, multitude and multifold of events. GCOM has already made a decision that it will declare the results of these elections on the basis of the numbers generated by the recount. That's a unanimous decision of GCOM made on the 16th of June, published in the newspapers via a press release. And it is on that very day that Lowenfield was given the instructions that he were to go and prepare this report. That is in writing. That is a decision already made. Why are we revisiting that decision? To satisfy who? My brother, the elections have been, APNU-AFC have lost these elections. There is no coming back. And there is no new elections that can be lawfully held. And there will not one that will be physically held either, even illegally. There is only one way forward. APNU coming out of government. There is no other way. Because they have lost the elections. This train is only going in one direction. And it is in that direction. And whatever hurdle we will have to cross to reach there, we will cross it.
I thank you very much.
I want to take you back. Sorry, Leonard. My last question, then over to you, my co-host. I'm so sorry. Councillor, I want to take you back to the NCM decision and that case. It is an understanding that approximately, a lot of money would have been expended by the state for that case that APNU-AFC would have lost, it would go by the same logic then that the state may be bearing the cost of the current case, of course, with Basil Williams there. Is that just? Is that proper? Is that the right thing that they have done there?
It is the most parasitic expenditure of taxpayers' dollars. And there is no one in Congress Place who can convince me or any objective Guyanese that taxpayers' money, the treasury, is not being plundered to finance these legal wastages. This case, as I said from the beginning, should never have been filed. They brought in Francis Alexis and 4 or 5 lawyers from Trinidad. What did they argue? With the greatest of respect for them, hogwash. Hogwash. Then they went to Trinidad, hire another, in addition to that 5 or 6, they bring 5 or 6 more. More hogwash. Not a single submission of theirs was upheld. Not a single submission was even sensible. And I say so with the greatest of respect.
So I thank you very much for that.
And then, I'll finish it.
Yes.
Then look at the public advertisements right across the region.
Exactly.
Attacking the CCJ, attacking the various leaders of CARICOM. And what did those leaders do? Spoke up for democracy. CCJ is our court. Look at the attack on our court. You know, these judges are very kind. I am telling you, these judges are very, very kind and magnanimous people. You know how much for a center page in the Guardian, Sunday Guardian newspaper? An entire page had an advertisement attacking the CCJ. And it was in Barbados. It was somewhere in the Eastern Caribbean, Antigua, elsewhere. And then you have these propaganda, Imran Khan or whatever his name is, don't know A to bullfoot in law and talking complex law in Jamaica and on all the television stations. Who paying for that? I hear Aubrey Norton speaking about complicated principles of law to a Trinidadian journalist. I mean, these guys, I said to somebody, I hope and pray that what they're doing to the legal profession, they will not do to the medical profession. Because if they start to pretend to be lawyers, if they start to pretend to be doctors, the way they're pretending to be lawyers, they kill out this whole country in a week. Imagine every Tom, Dick, and Harry Lal thinks that he's a lawyer and can go and speak about all kinds of legal issues. Imagine tomorrow they pretend we have a medical issue and all of them start to pretend to be doctors. What will happen to the patients in this country?
Well, we do have that problem. We have a bunch of politicians appointed to run the COVID task force, a major health crisis in the country. So they have already taken on that mantle, Councillor.
Well, we got to hope that they don't start to administer treatment.
Leonard.
Yes, thank you very much, dear Council. Today, the court, Justice Saunders would have made very clear about disenfranchised voters and what Lowenfield would have done by his very actions. Could you walk us through that? While we don't have a coercive orders or orders, could you walk us through that as to what are some of the implications of what the court says here?
We could not have had a coercive order because the decision that we appealed against was not a coercive order. All the Court of Appeal did was to make a declaration that votes in Article 177 of the Constitution means valid votes. So out of that, and that's what we are appealing, that's the decision we are appealing. When you appeal, you are simply asking the appellate court to review what transpired in the court below, and if what transpired in the court below is wrong in law, then to set it aside. That's all you can get in an appeal. You can't get coercive orders when none were prayed for in the original appeal? You follow what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yes.
No, my question to you really
Yes, so
was
I'm
was
getting to
what
that.
what's
So,
the import of those what the statements were made with regards to the don't disenfranchise thousands of voters.
right. So the court, the CCJ said that that court of appeal, as I was explaining to you just now, gave an implied invitation to Lowenfield, and Lowenfield accepted perversely that implied invitation to go ahead and invalidate votes. And Lowenfield did so by discounting or invalidating 115,000 votes. And that is what the CCJ said, which is nothing new, that he has no power to do so. Claudette Singh, in all fairness to her, the CCJ wrote about how much, 34 pages. Claudette Singh wrote 1 page, and she outlined the law accurately to Lowenfield.
Right.
When she said, go back, go and bring this report. And he still perverted himself. Well, now he has the guidance of the CCJ. Remember, he took guidance liberally from the Court of Appeal. Well, that order has been vacated and set aside. One would expect that with the same appetite and with the same emphasis, he will take the guidance now given by the Caribbean Court of Justice, our highest court. The Caribbean Court of Justice also reiterate what I have been saying and what we have been saying from day one, that you have an allegation about dead people voting, about some paper missing from a box, then the proper place for that allegation to be heard and determined is the High Court by way of an elections petition. There's nothing new. This CCJ has not dealt with a single new principle in this case. It's everything we have been saying from the inception. But it is the agony that these 30 or 40 political teams are subjecting us to day in, day out,
Right.
that have this whole country in this state of psychological and mental turmoil.
Correct. Correct. Counsel, if I may, there is you mentioned Madam Claudette Singh, and I must say, both Mr. Gildarie and yours truly today, we expressed that I don't think there is a human being on planet Earth that envies the position that Chairman Claudette Singh is in at this moment, because the PNC, APNU-AFC people are doing everything possible to make it extremely difficult for her. And the latest one, Counsel, is what I see. I don't know if it's a threat or if it's just, what it is. But there are certain words being used by a PNC operative saying as follows, quote, pressing forward, the GCOM has declarations in which APNU-AFC has won the election and also a report which has APNU-AFC winning the election. GCOM is free to act on either, for the outcome will be APNU-AFC forming the next government. End of quote. James Bond 2 hours ago.
James Bond is almost a functional illiterate. I don't listen to him. I don't read what he says. I don't think he's fully sensible, if you ask me personally. But that aside, Justice Claudette Singh is a career judge. She was a former Court of Appeal judge. She is no stranger to pressure. She described herself as the Iron Lady, I think, at the time when she took the job. So I don't think that this pressure is pressure that she will succumb to. Claudette Singh bravely sat on a bench and cut 2 years out of a PPP government. And the PPP was the sitting government. and then worked with the PUP government after that. So Claudette Singh is no stranger to pressure.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Claudette Singh has signaled. I know people have been critical of her because of instances where she should have acted and did not act. And she could have been more decisive, but she was not. And I myself have been critical of her as well. But I know that she knows what she has to do. The judgment of the CCJ has cleared the way. And why would Claudette Singh bother with someone of the caliber and stature of, well, what's the name of the guy you call yourself?
Bond. My name is Bond. James Bond.
Why? And nobody of substance should even expend any time bothering with persons of that note. So I am not worried that those types of views can influence. There is only one declaration to be made, and there is only one basis upon which that declaration can be made lawfully,
Right.
and that is on the recon figures, which have to be incorporated in that report that Lowenfield must present. And let me clear the air again. The commission is not bound to accept any report from Lowenfield. It is only the correct report, because the commission has already told him what numbers to use. He
Correct.
can't bring back something else. He must bring back that which he was directed to bring back. And that is why the law says that he is subject to the direction
Correct.
of GCOM. It's not the other way around. Some
That's
people
right.
think that is the other way around. It's not.
Correct. Counsel, another, I believe your study mate, batchmate, or you will correct me, Mr. Harman, would have used the following words, quote, "As we have said all along, our Constitution made provision for the actions taken by the Chief Elections Officer 2 hours ago."
Which action?
Well, I guess he's referring to that report that the CCJ has now thrown out.
And he didn't cite you in the section of the Constitution.
Not at all.
You sure he heard that the CCJ rule today? Maybe he's drunk or something. I don't know if he know that the CCJ ruled. And the CCJ said that the CEO can only use the recon figures.
That's right.
And, and he has a duty to do so under the law. They cited Section 696 of the Representation of the People Act. So I'll give Harman the benefit of the doubt. He didn't know. Apparently, he missed the CCJ judgment. When I come off the phone, I'll give him a call and ask him to read it. And perhaps he'll correct himself.
So, Council, I want to come to what is next. We have heard that there is likely to be a meeting of GCOM tomorrow. What do you see both in your political cap and your legal cap as the next steps from that will likely happen tomorrow?
Well, the legal next step would be for, as the court said, everything is now explicit and express, that Lowenfield must be directed again by GCOM to prepare the report in accordance with, they can cite the CCJ judgment, since he cited the Court of Appeal on the judgment the last time. Prepare the judgment, prepare the report, being guided by the CCJ ruling, and use, I would prefer that the commission writes out the whole letter so that there is no room for equivocation and misinterpretation. So you say, guided by the CCJ ruling, and then you actually set out the numbers that he must use to tabulate the results and compute the results and prepare his report.
What do you see? The hypothesis. Sorry, go on.
Yes, so you're asking me the legal step. The
Yes.
next legal, and of course they should put a time frame, and it should not be more than 2 hours. More than 2 hours. Lowenfield is not unable or should have any great difficulty in preparing this report. Lowenfield has this report already prepared.
So no more than 2 hours.
No more than 2 hours. Send it back to the commission or bring it back to the commission, and the commission declare based upon that report.
A clarification
That
there.
entire process shouldn't take 3 hours.
A clarification there, Council. Does the Commission have to meet before such a correspondence is sent to Lowenfield, or based on what transpired today, the chairman could probably go right ahead and send him an official notice?
And let me add this before you answer. Doesn't the chairman's last instruction, following which there was a stay, remains in place?
Yes, but as the CCJ said, he should be requested to. Actually, you're correct. The CCJ did say that Lowenfield should be requested or directed to comply with that request. Mm-hmm. So the chairperson should have been communicating with him already. So tomorrow he brings the report.
So there hasn't. You don't have to have a meeting first and then request of him.
In my view, a meeting is not necessary. But the GCOM is an independent body, and they regulate their own process. Mm-hmm. So if the chairperson has decided that there will be a meeting, well then so be it. But what I do know is that at that meeting, the sentiments expressed by the CCJ should be conveyed, which is to Lowenfield, which is that he should be again directed to comply with that June 16th letter and bring back the proper report. And once that report is, and a time frame should be stipulated, and once that report is brought back, then that should be the basis for the declaration of the election results. And then we take it from there.
Mm-hmm. So Leonard, to you, sir, as a senior journalist, that clears up something there, that really theoretically or practically tomorrow's meeting should be one where Lowenfield is complying with that June 16th instruction.
That's correct. Lowenfield, let me just make this very clear. Lowenfield is a party to these proceedings. He chose not to appear. That's nobody's fault. He is bound by these proceedings. Mm-hmm. He's a party. So I am sure that the court would have emailed him, as they did to every other party, email him a copy of this judgment. If he wishes to monkey around with the judgment, then it's a matter for him. I suppose he would be prepared to face the consequences. But I don't think the position is in doubt anymore. How the GCOM plans to orchestrate it, that's up to the GCOM, because they are autonomous. But I know that it must be quick, and it must result in the declaration of the final results based upon the recount numbers, which ought to say that the PPP won by 15,000. Irfan Ali is the president, and we have 33 seats in the National Assembly.
Council, to that same point, as you know and you would appreciate, we have gone through every bit, to use your own word, perversity over these past 100 odd days. Every stretch of imagination would have been used. What is to stop them from doing it? So hypothetically, I ask you the following. Mr. Lowenfield goes to GCOM tomorrow and said, my understanding of the section that says total votes cast, my understanding of that is to use the votes as declared in the recount and applying the observation reports, and the net is, so he's back at square one.
Well, then it's time that we have to find someone else to declare the results. And I will leave it at that. Mm-hmm. That I'm not going to go beyond that. So don't ask me what that means.
No. Well, I'd not going there, but rather to take you back to what one of the stakeholders in the Mingo first attempt did, was to go to court and say, listen, instruct this man about 84 too. Is there a likelihood that you would have to go to court and say, instruct him what votes mean?
No. I am not going to. You cannot ridicule the court system. What more you want from a court? No court will entertain me. This matter is res judicata. What are you going to ridicule? What you going to do? Abuse the court?
My point is that if he says this is his interpretation,
So when we have to deal with him. You can't fetch that burden and put it on any judge's shoulder.
correct.
The burden is with GCOM, and GCOM will have to discharge that burden.
Okay.
We're not moving from GCOM anymore. All focus is on GCOM. And GCOM
tomorrow,
has to do what GCOM is required to do by law.
and just to restate it for the sake of our viewers and listeners, tomorrow, theoretically, Lowenfield should be presenting his report in compliance with the instructions of June 16, and that is to prepare, to present the figures for the recount. Counsel?
Yes.
All right. Now, Leonard, earlier today, from a different perspective, we would have seen Granger make statements, and of course, the guys at the newspapers would have gotten the reports of Granger's making. This is not for Mr. Nandlall; it's more for you, sir. Point has been made that Mr. Granger, as president, commander in chief, and all of that, he would have come out to the public or to his supporters and make a statement without wearing a mask. In total breach of the COVID-19 guidelines.
How could we arrest him?
Well, I'm asking you, you are the reporter.
Well, yes, there was a video, and he was surrounded by some people dressed in green, as well as police officials down at Carmichael Street, I think it was, and he was not wearing a mask. That is correct.
So, Counsel, on the other side, sorry for that deflection a little bit. I just want to come back to this point of the likelihood of the possibilities from tomorrow henceforth. Is it your assumption or presumption that after GCOM's meeting tomorrow, in short order, everything being equal, there should be a declaration, if not by, it's before this weekend?
There can be a declaration tomorrow, Thursday. Friday deleted. Friday deleted.
And I know I asked you this in an earlier show, just repeat for the people's sake. Is Madam Claudette Singh required to make a public statement, or is she obliged just to advise the Chancellor?
The declaration is, no, it's not, it is made public by its publication in the official gazette. That is what publication, that is what publish means. Or the declaration being made public. So it's not she doesn't necessarily have to sit down and declare. Its publication in the official gazette, or the publication of the official gazette of the results, is what the declaration is in law.
Right.
But normally it is, they would hold a press conference and they would announce the results.
Correct. And here is another question that I hope it's not placing you in an uncomfortable spot, but as Bina Singh or Bina Prasad would have said, the unruly horse is galloping right into the finishing line almost. So, so I will ask you this, sir. If Mr. Lowenfield continues to perverse himself, continues to not comply with the laws, forget what GCOM can do or will do to him, remedies under the law.
Well, he is already, first of all, he can be dismissed, of course, summarily, for just cause, as he has given perhaps most just cause than any other person I know, and would again have committed a series of serious criminal offenses, for which he will obviously, at the appropriate time, have to pay for and face the consequence for. You can't commit. Look, as I said before, I have worked with Mr. Lowenfield for the past 5 years or more. Lowenfield is quite competent at his job. Nobody can tell me that Lowenfield does not know what he's doing is wrong. I would like to know what is the incentive that is driving him to these extremities. And hopefully proper investigation will be done at some point in time, and that would be disclosed for public consumption.
Right.
Because I don't know what is it that you have to have promised someone to
Well,
have
Council,
them.
Council, yesterday the Guyana Rag carried an advertisement that it claimed to have been paid by whom we don't know, but they carried an advertisement saying, "We got your back." This is a state newspaper telling somebody who's defaulting that we got your back. That's one of the incentives, isn't it? That regardless of what he does, if Granger remains as president, he's going to pardon him.
You know, I don't know if they don't appreciate. First of all, you described the Chronicle aptly there, I think, as a rag. And that those things will have to be addressed as well. You know, how these things, who paid for this ad? Look, my friend, all of these things are going to be answered at some point in time. But look, I am a Guyanese, and I like to look at the impact of these things on my country, and in particular on Guyanese people. What a young child growing up, what are you inculcating in his head? This man has committed a wrong. A court has ruled that he has committed a wrong. You did not need a court to rule that. This man has basically stolen 115,000 votes. And you are making him into a hero. What message, subliminal and actual, are you sending to young people in this country? That, you know what, you can do wrongs, and once the politicians give you coverage, then, you know, it's okay, you're a hero. That's the message that we are sending to people.
There is precedent for that. They had enwrapped the Guyana flag onto the coffin of one of the persons that would have been killed in a crime spree.
Blackie London, right?
Yes.
And they pushed his coffin around town and draped the national flag around it and regarded him as Robin Hood and that kind of thing. So you see, and how can that be right? And how can these people walk with their head in the air and aspire to continue to lead our country and lead people? I don't know, in the quiet moments, if they don't sit down and try to introspect and assess the damage that they are doing to their country and to their image and to themselves and to their people. And I don't know if they don't have family. I know Lowenfield's family. I don't want to, you know, but they have lawyers and judges and so on. I don't understand. These things, in my quiet moments, I have great difficulty understanding how do you explain these things to your children, educated people. How do you explain it to your wife? How do you explain it to your relatives and to your friends? And to, you know, I don't know how it is being done.
True.
It is a collective sickness that really we have to find a way how to address this thing.
And we have found that there is so much backward passage of things. You mentioned earlier, Council, And I want our brothers and sisters to remember this. The council has mentioned that there is a likelihood that some of the deals that they want to put through might not even see the Gazette because they could just sign those things and the minister has the power to, well, feels he has the power to sign them and we'll not know. But what we do know, council, is that as of recent, they would have, according to the mayor, they would have gazetted some increase in property rates, the rates taxes for the city council, but that it would have been effective since 2017. And they say they forgot to gazette it then and they're gazetting it now. But among those, it means that we all got to keep our eyes open and peeled with the gazette.
My friend, I don't know. I plan to, and I was waiting until this case was concluded or is concluded, and then the next set of cases I want to work on includes the one that you spoke about. I don't understand. I got to get the facts clear. You cannot levy taxes retrospectively. That's a universal principle of law. That would amount to the unlawful deprivation of property, private property, which is protected under the Constitution. Mm-hmm. You can raise the tax from 2020 going forward. You can't tell me now, I have paid my taxes for 2019, I have paid my taxes for 2018, I have paid my taxes for 2017, all at the existing rates, which you had.
But just to correct something, so what I think the clarification they published was that you had already been charged those extra taxes since 2017, but they're only now gazetting it. In other words, that you have already paid the extra taxes.
Well, if the gazetting of the how do you now you can have no tax. There is no taxation other than by legislation. That's a fundamental rule. And that is what caused the Magna Carta. Because the King of England was trying to pass taxes, levy taxes on the people of England without taking it to Parliament. And you had a war in England over that. As a result, and that was a chant, no taxation without legislation. As a result, you can only levy taxes by legislation. Now, if you want to increase the taxes, you can possibly do it by a subsidiary legislation, which is what is required to be published in the official gazette. Because we don't have any parliament now, so you can't pass no new law. Well, let us assume that by regulation, you can impose an increase. Now, a regulation only takes effect upon its publication in the official gazette. So the increase can only take effect upon the publication in the official gazette. If the gazette was published this month, then it's only then that the increase can take effect. So I have to go, but if they had charged me an increase in rates for 2018, 2019, and 2017 without gazetting, then that would have been illegal because they had increased without legislation, without the proper legal process. So either way, I am going to get to the bottom of that and I want back my money. I am a taxpayer.
Thank you very much. And York should be asking for his money too. A question for counsel here from one of our viewers. Should a meeting or meetings of the commission be called but fail to meet a quorum? Does the chairman have any powers to make a declaration in such a situation?
There is a process by which GCOM secures a quorum. Once a meeting is called, and if there is no quorum, then the following day at the same time, another meeting has to be called. And if that second meeting is called, and 3 commissioners and the chairman appears or attends, then that constitutes a quorum and the business can go ahead.
Thank you. So, for Leonard, another question.
No, that's it. Let's call it
Okay,
that.
so for viewers and listeners out there, I just want to we are going to wrap up our discussions with Mr. Anil Nandlall in a couple minutes. And before I ask him for his closing comments, I want to remind you all out there that the CCJ Justice, Honorable Justice Saunders would have said today, and I quote, "It is for GCOM to ensure that the CEO submits a report in accordance with its directive of 16th June in order to proceed along a path directed by the laws of Guyana." And so council would have educated us that the directive of 16th June stands firm, and it's Lowenfield that tomorrow has to comply and submit a report based on that directive. Council, over to you.
I just want to remind your viewers of the orders that were actually made. Well, first of all, the first important order that was made is that the court took jurisdiction and explained on what basis it took jurisdiction. And it set aside the decision of the Guyana Court of Appeal on the ground that the decision is invalid, it was made without jurisdiction, and it is of no effect. So whatever they decided, just tossed aside. And the court further declares that the report of the Chief Elections Officer dated 23rd of June 2020 is similarly of no effect. So Lowenfield's perverted report has been vacated. And Yogi would recall that I had explained to you in one of our discussions that the appeal to the Caribbean Court of Justice was not filed lightly. In fact, the decision to file the appeal was made instantaneously by me, but it evoked a lot of controversy and opposition. I remember distinctly many persons in high positions called me and said, I think you all have made a mistake. Letters appear in the papers. I think you didn't need to appeal that decision. It was innocuous. It decided nothing, and the matter is still with GCOM. We had to, and I told you then, that we had to appeal it for two reasons. One, because Lowenfield acted upon it. And we would have had a hell of a problem in getting Lowenfield report withdrawn voluntarily. We knew that once Lowenfield took guidance from the Court of Appeal, and if we got the Court of Appeal decision set aside, logically, if not legally, Lowenfield report would also have to go. But more importantly, the Court of Appeal, in the course of its ruling, the two judges, plunged our law in such chaos and confusion that we would not have known what to do come next election. They destroyed our voting system. They destroyed election litigation. They confused the two jurisdictions, the jurisdiction in the High Court, and confused it with the jurisdiction in the Court of Appeal. You no longer knew when to file a writ, something in the High Court. You didn't know when to file a matter in the Court of Appeal when you want to, invoke that jurisdiction. You no longer knew what the powers of a CEO are. Next election, the next chief elections officer can sit down in his office, wherever it is located, and just declare one government One party has won the
That's
election
right.
without any connection or regard to the votes.
Correct.
And he can tell you, well, I don't believe that at Anil that elections were done properly. Or, Lowenfield has a magical formula. He didn't meet his standard
Yeah.
or his acceptable standard. He can
Correct.
prepare same observation report, at all the PAP strongholds. He could go to Port Morant and the quarantine and say, you know what? I don't think those elections there were done properly. And he can go to Linden and certify Linden properly. Or vice versa, depending on which party bribed him the most.
Mm-hmm.
He can nullify Linden and Georgetown elections, but uphold quarantine and Essequibo. That is what the Court of Appeal and Lowenfield did to our law co-jointly. So we had to clear all these things up. Imagine if we didn't go to the Court of Appeal, the CCJ.
That's right.
And that Court of Appeal decision was left. Or worse yet, brother, imagine if we did not have a CCJ. Imagine if we did not have a CCJ, what would have happened to our country today? And those people, you see, Yog, the law, as I said, and I always say, is the greatest institution invented by mankind. And those who are ungrateful to the law and the institutions of the law will live to regret it. You see all those who are cussing the CCJ all around the place? One day, you will see how they will go on their knees and beg for justice right at that court. One thing you mustn't do in a civilized society is interfere with your judicial system.
Correct.
Never ever do that. That is the cradle in which civilization rests.
Correct.
So it is my hope and it is my expectation that now that the CCJ has delivered its clear and erudite ruling, I encourage everyone to read it. It's just a few pages, not very long.
Correct. Yeah, it's a few pages.
Right, John, not very long. If you can't make it to the end, read the executive summary. It's very short, and it's written in commendably clear language and can be understood by all. Read it, digest what it says, and hopefully it will be acted upon and it will guide the process forward, whereby the CEO will have to be directed or reminded that he was directed before to prepare that report, and that he must do so now with the guidance of the CCJ, not the Court of Appeal, and must use the figures generated by the GCOM, by the recount, and he must bring back that report within a specified time, and the chairperson and the commission must use that as the basis for the declaration of the results, and that must also be done within a specified time. I think 4 months and all the shenanigans have exhausted.
Yes.
I mean, we are exhausted, the country is exhausted, the people are exhausted, the war may be fed up with us by now.
Indeed. We
A
might
question,
have exhausted all the platitudes. Yes, go
Jog,
on.
a quick question from one of our viewers here. Could the good counsel tell us whether the appeal judges there at the Court of Appeal, are they there for life? Could they be removed?
Judges have a retirement age at which they must retire unless their tenure is extended. So they're not there for life. There's a retirement age. One is a Court of Appeal. Well, I presume you're talking about all 3 judges. Well, there were 2 Court of Appeal judges. I think their time is, I believe 65 is the age of retirement for a Court of Appeal judge, and for a High Court judge, I believe it is 62.
Uh-huh. Got you very clear. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Leonard, they would be there long after you would have retired as a newspaper man, my friend. Don't
Taking
worry.
jabs at me at this point in time. It's 10 to 9.
Council, it's been good to have you tonight in room 592, and it's been educational. And ladies and gentlemen, viewers all across, let me just say hello to our friend from Belfast, UK, sorry, Belfast, UK, that has withstood all the timing with us here, knowing that it's very late over there from New Mexico, from Mexico itself, Antigua, Canada, USA, Norway, and all of the viewers from all across that has been joining us throughout these, and to our viewers and listeners on YouTube that are seeing us live on YouTube as well, our hello to you. Ladies and gentlemen, know that you can get us on YouTube. Know that you can always review this video after we have ended the program tonight. It's always going to be on the Kaieteur Radio YouTube channel or the Kaieteur Radio Facebook page. And Council, thank you so very much. It's been a pleasure to have you here, and we certainly look forward to continued engagement with you through the tough times ahead. We certainly hope it's not much longer to go.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen all across the country, let us say thanks to Mr. Nandlall and to the Kaieteur Radio and all of the crew there for all the work putting together this radio station and the programming to make this possible. We do look forward to whatever the meeting will be tomorrow at GCOM. And we certainly know that, all being said, the difficult days hopefully are behind us. We do not envy what difficulties the chairman herself might face, but we know God be with her. God be with you, Madam Chairman, and we certainly look forward to you playing out your role as far as is practical with good health and, of course, with all the blessings that we can pray for you to get. And Mr. Gildarie, your final words tomorrow. Are we going to have our elections watch, sir, tomorrow at 1:30?
Absolutely. We are going to be here at 1:30 sharp. We're going to be bringing you coverage also from that meeting that has been scheduled for the Guyana Elections Commission. And one of our viewers has said, let us remind the people of Guyana that there were 5 things that the Caribbean Court of Justice give it endorsement or made it very clear today. And so they could read that tomorrow in Kaieteur News. We publish in the summary as it is. We've taken a couple of pages. So get your copy or go online and read it. It's all there, in very clear language. So it's 5 things basically that the court has said. Read it tomorrow. So we're going to be online, Kaieteur News online. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube too.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap up tonight's program at room 592, let us also give a prayer for our political leaders, all of them. And a special prayer for you, Mr. David Granger, sir. I want to quote to you the serenity prayer and pray for you, sir, that I hope you get the courage to accept things that you cannot change and put this election behind you and become the elderly statesman we know you can be. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, it's been a pleasure to have you in room 592. We look forward to your company again tomorrow in Elections Watch at 1:30, and of course tomorrow night in room 592 as we say thank you to Council Mr. Anil Nandlall for being here with us tonight, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great night. Remember, say a prayer for this beautiful country of ours. It is still the best country in all of the world. Have a good night.
Clarification, a quick clarification there. It's 5 judges, I think, who would have been unanimously on this, right? So I just wanted. Thank you very much.
Yes, it was a unanimous decision. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, have a great night then. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
COVID-19 tips sponsored by Dex Soap. 1. Practice social distancing. 2. Wear your mask when leaving the house. 3. Wash your hands regularly for 20 seconds using our Dex Soap. 4. Cover your nose and mouth with a disposable tissue or flex elbow when you cough or sneeze. Choose Dex Soap for that extra cleanliness. Dex Soap is affordable and available nationwide.